The first time Warden Analyst Osuri saw the human child, she was standing perfectly still behind the electrified glass of Cell 7K. No crying, no movement, just standing, both hands pressed flat against the barrier that would burn her if she pushed too hard. Waiting. Osuri's bioluminescent filaments dimmed. As a provisional monitor on her third rotation, she relied entirely on the Vakathi Emotion Index. The data dictated that a 6-year-old captive of 9 days should broadcast acute terror. This child broadcast a dense, heavy focus. Clack. Osuri's data stylus tapped a steady, nervous rhythm against the polished security console. Clack. Commandant Zurl had authorized this extraction. The Tezkeri Expansion Authority wanted the KR-7 asteroid mining rights. Earth's delegation refused to sign. Zurl simply pulled the Earth negotiator's daughter from a civilian transport shuttle. Leverage was a brutal, ancient mathematics. I wish I could say the Commandant's mathematics were correct. What happened next defies all standard logic. Stay close. Osuri accessed the father's file. Tobias Kren. Earth military. Current status listed him as actively in transit. Osuri blinked her secondary eyelids at the readouts. He was not a diplomat. He was an ex-combat engineer. His service record detailed the manual decommissioning of 11 alien weapons installations. He carried no registered sidearms. He commanded no fleet, just one human. He was flying a single, unshielded vessel toward a Tezkeri blockade of 3 full warfleets. Osuri's neck filaments tightened, curling inward. The data presented a fatal contradiction. How does an unarmed engineer survive 300 capital ships? Hour 11 ticked over on the console. Mila abandoned her rigid position at the glass. She sat cross-legged on the cold deck plating. She clutched a torn, singed star-shaped patch in her left hand. With her right, she wove her fingers through empty air. Osuri magnified the feed. The child was practicing a complex knot. She was simulating the exact looping pattern of a braided bracelet, over and over. Preparing. A Tezkeri guard breached Cell 7K. Standard protocol dictated the removal of all personal items. He marched forward and reached for the star patch. Mila did not flinch. She looked up at the soldier, a heavily armored veteran 3 times her mass. "My dad is coming soon." The guard stopped. His rigid dorsal scales did not ripple with the usual Tezkeri aggression. They flattened instantly against his spine. The dark green pigment drained from his jawline, leaving a sickly, pale chalk. He withdrew his hand. He stepped backward and left the cell. 14 hours later, the outer proximity alarms flared. Fleet Commander Rath's first blockade reported contact. A single human craft hit Tezkeri space at a velocity that defied structural tolerance limits. 200 warships formed a solid wall. The human did not decelerate. He did not broadcast surrender. He aimed directly for the center of the formation. Osuri watched the telemetry spike. No weapons signature. No escorts. Which meant he didn't plan to fight them. He threaded the 4-meter gap between 2 capital ships at maximum thrust. 200 ships. A 4-meter gap. Fleet Commander Rath's official after-action report consisted of 3 words. He went through. The second Warfleet deployed a localized electromagnetic pulse net. The human vessel went dark, drifting blind for 90 agonized seconds. Then the thrusters ignited. Kept coming. By the time he reached the third Warfleet, they didn't even charge their cannons. They simply opened their formation and watched him pass. Osuri felt the signal shift before the proximity alarms wailed. In Cell 7K, Mila stopped braiding her invisible string. She stood up. She walked to the electrified glass and pressed both bare hands flat against the humming barrier. This time she pushed. The burns blistered her palms instantly. She did not cry out. Her waiting signal mutated into an emotion the Vakathi index could not classify. An ancient, absolute certainty. Then the facility fractured. A ship slammed into the primary docking pad with enough kinetic force to shatter the external blast plating. Commandant Zurl triggered maximum lockdown. 200 heavily armed Tezkeri guards flooded the perimeter. Weapons free. Osuri watched the security feeds. Corridor 1 remained clear. Corridor 2 clear. In Corridor 3, a blurred shadow moved with impossible velocity. A heavy static hiss bled from the Corridor 4 audio feed right before the cameras went completely black. Osuri's respiratory slits flared. 200 guards. 14 sealed doors. It should have taken a battalion. He reached Corridor 7 in exactly 11 minutes. Osuri's monitors finally caught him clearly. A lone man walking, not running. His shaved head dripped sweat. His hands were coated in fresh chemical burns, and a braided bracelet dangled from his left wrist. He had disabled 200 guards without firing a single shot, leaving them disarmed and unconscious on the deck plating in his wake. Biological data confirms that human parental protective instincts trigger an immediate, violent neurochemical cascade, completely flooding their nervous system with adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine simultaneously, pushing their physical strength, pain tolerance, and sustained endurance far beyond any rational biological limits when their offspring face a direct threat. Zurl stood at the corridor's end with 14 elite guards. The commandant held up the KR-7 mining document. "Sign this, and she is yours." Tobias Kren looked at the Tezkeri commander. He looked at the document. Then he looked through the electrified glass at his daughter. He stepped forward. "I didn't cross 3 Warfleets to sign a piece of paper." He plunged his bare, burned hands directly into the high-voltage containment panel. He bypassed the security relays manually, tearing the active power conduits free. The electrical surge should have stopped his heart. He simply ripped the primary breaker completely out of the wall. Detention Complex Row 9 was fully decommissioned 48 hours later. 47 Tezkeri personnel filed immediate transfer requests. Zurl's military record was permanently sealed. The Tezkeri Expansion Authority quietly dropped all claims on the KR-7 asteroid belt, along with 6 neighboring systems they had never even been asked about. Humans were magnificent, but their love was a terrifying, weaponized force. Osuri archived the docking bay footage. Tobias sat on his cracked loading ramp, hands trembling uncontrollably from the aftermath. Mila slept securely against his chest. Her burned palms were bandaged. The braided bracelet rested perfectly on her wrist. In her small, sleeping fist, she clutched a torn star.